This morning, we're talking with a rising star in what's being called a new golden era for stand-up comedy. You've got legends like Jerry Seinfeld and Steve Martin going on tour again, and newer stars like Trevor Noah, you know him, Ali Wong, and Hassan Minhaj. Meanwhile, Netflix is dropping specials all the time, several new ones in just the last few weeks, including that divisive hour from Dave Chappelle. But amid all of that, one of the hottest tickets around is for a guy named Nate Bargatze. We met him on tour in his hometown of Nashville, and I'll tell you, his jokes are clean, politics-free, even weirdly comforting. And that is exactly what a lot of people crave right now.
So this is a place you come to a lot?
Yeah.
Guy walks into a coffee shop doesn't sound like much of a setup.
Just iced coffee with cream.
But for a comedian like Nate Bargatze, the smaller the moment, the better the joke.
I went into Starbucks, ordered iced coffee with milk, nothing crazy, you know, and the guy looked at me weird. You know, when you're get something in your head, you're like, I'm pretty sure he doesn't know what I said.
The story of another caffeine run got a big laugh for Bargatze in the 2017 Netflix show, The Stand-Ups.
And he gives me milk with ice in it. I had to ask him, I go, what is that? He goes, milk with ice in it. I was like, what do you think? Do I look like a psycho to you, dude?
It helped launch the 42-year-old comedian into 2 more hour-long specials on Netflix.
I take my shirt off, standing there, no shirt, and this old man walks up and goes, Olivia?
And his shows don't really feel like shows at all.
I don't know who he disrespected more, me or Olivia, to be honest. I mean,
It's almost like 2 guys waiting for their kids' practice to finish so they can go home and have dinner. It's like just killing time almost.
Yeah.
But in a funny way.
Sometimes people would come up and they'd be like, you remind me of my brother or my cousin or my something. And I always remember thinking that's what I think I want to be. You want to be someone they remind you, almost like they'd be like, you're a familiar face that they could hang out with.
And while many of the biggest names in comedy tell jokes that may be divisive or mean, Bargatze does neither.
As long as I make fun of myself and my family, I'll be the dumb one. And you can either laugh, I look at you laughing with me or you laugh at me. It doesn't even matter. But it's about me, it's not about you.
I've had 3 concussions in my life, and none of them because of sports. Just living life, man, Stuff happens to your head. What are you gonna do?
And politics is strictly off limits.
That's not what I'm here for. There's a lot of trust that these audiences have in me. And so I don't want to break that trust.
The Atlantic magazine recently took note, calling him the nicest man in stand-up, adding he comes across as a walking Xanax, a reputation he's built one PG joke at a time since he first took the stage nearly 20 years ago here at Zany's in Nashville.
When you were figuring it out, did you try on other styles, other kind of tones?
No, I kind of stayed this way. I'm clean. I've always been clean. I can only do this accent. I can't not do it. So I could never tone it down.
Folks here seem to like his tone just the way it is.
I didn't think of this, that this would come. And,
his picture is even painted on the wall outside this hometown club.
A messy crash scene at Nashville's most popular comedy club.
Though his face was the only face obliterated by a dump truck last year.
I was just demolished.
Nothing, though, can take away this accomplishment. Bargatze recently headlined a sold-out show at the Grand Ole Opry.
If you're a chart maker, this has been your time. You're probably doing graphs too now. You're probably usually I just do charts, but during COVID, I got pulled into the graph world quite a bit.
It marked a return to the place he once worked as a teenager, sweeping up after the crowds.
Did you ever look up at the Grand Ole Opry and think to myself, gonna be there?
It's such a legendary place that I don't even know if I thought, if I ever, it's too far beyond your dreams.
And now you think in the reverse, if it doesn't go well up there, you can always come back and...
I think they're gonna make me sweep after the show. I think
that's part of the deal.
But making people laugh has always come naturally to Nate, perhaps because it runs in the family. His father, Stephen, was a clown.
I was born, he was a clown. It was never weird to me. I thought everybody's dad was a clown.
I remember his first joke.
His first joke.
And this guy's sitting there and he goes, "Waiter, there's a fly in my soup." And the waiter goes, "Don't worry, the spider on the spoon will get it." And Nathan laughed. I mean, with like tears coming down his eyes. He's laughing at this joke. He's 5.5 years old. And then he explains to me why it's funny. He starts saying, "Don't you, this is what makes that such a great, funny joke." And I mean, it didn't, but a light should have come on right then. What kid thinks about why something's funny?
On the night we visited, Dad was also one of the opening acts.
It's got to be Elmer's glue, okay?
A little goofiness, followed by a lot of heart.
I'm so proud of my family.
I mean, I had to follow him doing good, and then it's emotional, and then I got to go up and like and I got to dig myself out of that hole.
I mean, you cry because he's your son, but also because he's doing what you once wanted to do.
Yeah, that's very, very, very true.
Do you have a theory for why Nate seems to be connecting so much right now?
People can relate to his comedy, and they relate to and he's not a joke teller, he's a storyteller.
Yeah.
And I think people sense what he's telling them is really happening and it's true, and it is.
I see a dead horse just laid out in this guy's yard.
Nate Bargatze's humor reminds us that we're all probably a little more clueless than we'd like to admit.
So I learned that horses lay down to sleep. I did not know that.
And that's okay.
Where are you trying to go?
Your, I guess, ultimate goal would be like when people talk about like, because I mean, it's hard to narrow and be like one person's like the greatest. There's, you know, Pryor, Chappelle, Carlin, Seinfeld. You got all these kind of names, Burr, but you just want to be mentioned, I think, with the people at the top. Like that's the ultimate goal that I think for me as a stand-up.
So Nate's one of the funniest and one of my favorite people to have on TV in my household. He was a very soothing and hilarious presence through the coronavirus lockdowns. And so it was thrilling for me to be able to introduce him to a wider audience.
But I thank you for the introduction. Both you guys knew who he was. I had never heard of him before. It reminds me of Sebastian Maniscalco. I like humor that's relatable, that's funny and clean. And I just think, I love his delivery.
Yeah.
I'm now going to look at the Netflix stuff.
Yeah, go back to it. Everyone should. Tennessee
Thank you,
Kid.
Tony.
There's nothing like relatable comedy. We'll be right back.
Great job, Tony.